we have all this technology that could hook us together if we let it, but we really don't use it for that. We use it for something else. But the thing is that, you were talking about the way we presented on the site, we presented the thing is love the answer, right? That's what you were getting.
Yeah.
And it really is the answer. And that's the thing that people don't do when they're doing the social media and stuff generally. What they do is they sort of put their own face out there and that they would like to put out there rather than themselves. And you can't be friends with everybody in the same way. And the social media kind of forces that. And so you're talking with a lot of other people listening. So you don't get to just interface with that individual very often, if ever. Some of those people you never get to do one-on-one with. And remember that a friendship is two. It's a relationship, and there's only two in a relationship. If you have three, then you have a relationship, all the different possibilities, or four, but you only really relate to two because that's all there are is individuals, right? You never get, just by putting more people doesn't make new substances for them. So you have to get back to that one-on-one, and that's what we're missing. That the in-person time is so important with that. AT&T used to say it's the next best thing to being there. So the phone, it's really, really important. People should start using their phones for phones. And then, of course, we have this kind of media, which is very helpful, where you can see and talk to people, and we want to be able to use that to. But right now, we don't know that the importance of friendship, so we don't go out and seek it, like we said in the podcast. We really want people to go out and find those friends and do the work, detective work, find out who you're supposed to be friends with and where that truth is that you're supposed to have, and that person that can mesh with you to give each other those truths that you need to be who you are and to be part of the community that needs you to be who you are and needs you to be with the friends you're supposed to be with, be part of that intellectual hierarchy in the place that you belong.
Yeah. Wow, that's very, very profound.
And that's the love, that the love, each person seeing the proper truth of the other person and seeing the beauty of the whole, and it generates more like desire to be with the other.
Yeah. I mean, even just the point you're saying about that a friendship is between two, I think it's a very simple statement, but it's seems very profound. That it seems like there's a kind of tendency to get lost in a kind of collective today, and to lose that sense of like the two individuals. That's
right. Yeah. So do we have any questions that we?
Yes, we're getting one in from Dominic.
Okay.
Dominic has a lot of nice things to say, and
let's hear what he says.
He says, "This is amazing. I wish I would have known this a long time ago. Okay. Makes you wonder where humanity has been the last couple thousand years. Everybody should know this stuff, but nobody does." And his question is, why is it that we're just hearing this now? And thanks for doing this podcast. It was really great.
Okay, Dominic. Well, that's really, your statement, thank you for the kind words, and your statement is totally true. Nobody's said this before, and it's very alarming that we're in this state of this advanced culture in so many ways, and we haven't figured out what love is and what a friend is and what a man is and what a woman is, and just basic things, and we don't even ask those questions. Like, we don't ask, what is a handshake, what is a hug, what is a kiss. It's kind of nuts. It really is nuts, and what he's saying is so true. It shows that we have not lived up to what our calling is to be, and the reason is because we have this bad physics at it's a great physics, the equation physics, but it should be placed in its proper place. Instead of at the beginning, it comes later, after the basic physics, after the stuff you get through the senses. But that's not what we get. And the people that aren't scientists, is the vast majority of people, are the worst off because they don't even know that they've got a physics that keeps them from being able to think and even ask questions like this. So that's the whole preamble to the article, is to get us to see that there's a whole bunch of things that we've just not been given at birth that people in the past were given. And we need to have it much more precise than they needed to have it. And we have it much less than them. And so the natural evolution of understanding just hasn't happened. So we haven't asked the questions or sought the answer. So really, I really I really hope that you'll take and read that article, and we rewatch the podcast and really absorb that loss and pick up these things so you can begin to, be conscious about your life, be deliberate about your life, and say, this is the way I want to live my life. And that I'm just not going to run into people I happen to run into, but the people I'm meant to be. And as soon as I find somebody who knows the truth, I'm going to hang on to that person.
Yeah, that's good. We have a question from Ethan here. He says, "Hi, how does friendship work after one or both of the friends die?"
Oh, wow. That's like, well, I mean, after the one of the friends dies, that you've obviously, it's very sad, that's what we talked about, the attachment. Attachment is so important, and it's the loss of that avenue of friend, of truth, and that's in that person and through that person. And so that has to be really faced, and so then that you work, then with the other people that were also friends with that person, is a time to talk and remember, but in the next life, we pray for the people to be, in the next life in the right place in heaven, and eventually, and there that friendship will continue in a higher way, and so that's the sense in which we say that the friendships, that's the sense in which friends are permanent, because the relationships you build are a part of a larger growth that will terminate, and if you keep persisting and through the activity of grace, you get to heaven. So you're a permanent thing, and it's proved in SBS that you have a permanent part of yourself. The core part of yourself is permanent, and so those friendships last in that way.
Yeah, that's good. We have a question from Ben. He says, "Hi, Dr. Izzy and Fletcher. What are some good habits that a married couple should have to have a fruitful marriage?"
Oh. Okay, so we should notice that this podcast has been about friendship broadly, and so we've covered like all different types of friends, and we've made did male, female, lightly, but we did talk about them, and then we did male-female, and that was their biggest focus, because that's the sort of primary division within mankind, man-woman. And we have the action reception, and that's the core of the intellectual life, and then it's the thing that deepens to bring the intelligibility of children into the world. So we didn't really focus too much on the procreational, because the non-procreational is the sort of the anteroom to that, but it's also the normal mode for most people within the culture, because most people you're not married to.
Yeah.
So the man-woman relationships there, the vast majority, and that's the one that's been left out. So this podcast really, and the article really, tries to bring that out, because if you don't get that, you don't get the specification of marriage. So if you can really focus on the non-procreational and understanding that and those expressions, then when you get to the marriage, you will be able to deepen it and see it. So within marriage, those things are just more developed to go into the nesting phase and through children. So what I would recommend in thinking about that is to think about the non-procreational and the nature, the intellectual starting point is the intellectual nature by which you make action reception contact with your wife, and in that you grow in truth, and in that growth in truth, you grow in intimacy, and then you grow in the ability to contact your children and bring that truth to your children. So the short answer is, think about the non-procreational and get to understand that really well, and that will help you with the specification that is the procreational. And the other thing I can say to help you is we will have a podcast on dating and marriage, hopefully once that I get a chance to write the article on that and go to that stage. So
yeah, I think that will be helpful to a lot of people. Yeah. So we have a question here from Jack. He says, can a person have too many friends? And similarly, can a person maintain all their friendships if they have a large number?
Okay. That's a good question, Jack. Yeah, I mean, again, it's what I said before about the social media. Sometimes, for the social media, for the most part, it's just a massive amount of people that you could possibly never really be friends with in any even minor sense of the word, because you're just sort of stacking up numbers. So everybody, you're friends with everybody in some sense, and that is that you wish them well. You should pray for every man. But to really be friends in this sense of, a meaningful, some kind of meaningful, even though low-level intellectual contact, which is what creates the bond, the emotional bond, and all the rest at whatever level it would be, there has to be a limited number. And the number is going to depend on the person, but, it's certainly not 500, not for the ones that are above a certain level of intellectual contact. You just don't have that much of yourself. But, the number is going to be different for different people. Different people have different vocations, different places in the intellectual hierarchy. And so, but the thing is to have prioritized the friends that are you're made to be getting the most truth from. Then that person should have priority in your life. And then there's the hierarchical structure, and that's the time spent and the amount of interaction and so forth. And like I said, there's just 24 hours in a day. If you're having one-on-one relationships with everybody, you have 1 minute a day. That's not enough to do anything, but still, it's a finite number, even if you did that for 24 hours in a day. So you just do have to take into account that everything through your senses, and you have to allot the time to see where the truth is that you're supposed to be getting at the moment, and where the need is in the community. Right now, the need in the community is for get this physics right, and for people to learn how to think right, and so this has to be where you look for community. But generally speaking, you have to look for the truth that the community needs, become a part of that because that's your need, and then find your place in that and bring other people along, and then things will kind of fall into place.
Yeah, that's good. This is making me think of the statement I've heard before. People going to these really highly emotional rallies or retreats or something and saying things like, wow, I didn't realize I can love so many people I don't even know,
I can love somebody without even knowing them. Yeah, I saw that quote. It's not good. Because you don't love somebody you don't know. You don't love that which you don't know, obviously. So.
Yeah. So we have something here from Christian. It says, hello, Dr. Rizzi and Fletcher. Thanks for the great podcast and Q&A session. In the sad case of one friend cutting off another or ghosting the other friend, how can the friend that's being mistreated help the one that's mistreating him?
Yeah, these are a lot of specific questions. It's good questions, though. But, it really depends on the case. There's some cases, you do what you can and you try to help the person understand, and you try to be there for the person as best you know how. It's hard because our culture is very tolerant of breaking apart relationships. It's a scientized culture that doesn't really value human interaction. It values efficiency in if you know the analogy, in the Borg, where you're part of the Borg, you're part of the machine, and you get to do your part in there, and you get kudos for that, but not much for anything else. And if it affects your efficiency or affects your this or that, it doesn't, the human element of this is my friend and I should care about, and I do care about my friend, and all those emotions are kind of suppressed. And so it's hard. You don't have an environment, a better, more healthy environment would help that person to see what he was doing. And so one thing you can do is, to the degree you can't help that person, you can help the community to realize and be part yourself of not allowing you to become like that behavior, not to do that behavior, to change the community so the community is enforcing and wanting people to grow in truth and not sanctioning that it's okay, and giving, stick and carrot, stick for doing that and carrot for doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And to just redevelop that in ourselves first and in the people that we can influence, and try our best to help our friend. And like I say, at the end, you might not, just have to leave it to God. But you don't want to do that as an excuse to not do what you can.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's a sad thing, but yeah, that makes sense. I had this question come in, Dr. Izzy, about how do the principles that you've laid out in this article and in this podcast help us understand like the appropriate age for a couple to be married? Because in the past, it seemed like the ages were much younger, and today couples are older. And is there a good reason for that, or how do you make sense of that?
Yeah, again, that's more in the dating realm and not as much in this podcast. So we probably want to talk about that more in the other podcast when hopefully we have it. But it is an interesting point that brings us to the wider point about how different our culture, modern culture, is. There's so much learning that has to happen before you get married now that didn't exist in the past. And so you do have to have that intellectual, you go through school and typically now it's from most people or many people, college. So there's that educational background that has to happen before you're ready to get married, so that you can participate in the community as a married couple individually, knowing enough to be a contributing element in the community, because the marriage is the sort of cell of the body of man. And so you have to have that individuals that make up the cell have to be educated. And so there is good reason for making it later, but I think now for most people, it's much too late. I think they're waiting way too long. We should be talking like early 20s for most people. So okay. It depends on the individuals, but this is kind of just culturally, it's like shifted away, but not for a good reason, just because we just don't pay attention to friendships at all, and that leads to marriage, and then messing with marriage leads to children that don't that don't care about those things, and so it gets pushed off endlessly, and we don't make those. That marriage becomes people to a certain age. Oh, it's too late to get married. Oh no.
Yeah. 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 No, that is important to take into consideration. So there have been some things that have come up recently about you'd addressed this in the podcast at some level, but with a non-procreational male-female relationship, some people say it's just too dangerous, and they cite things like, the attraction between the man and the woman is just so powerful. Oh, there's even things like pheromones and other kinds of things that just it just brings you down. You're going to go fall into temptation, and it's just going to go a bad direction. I mean, how do you respond to something like that?
Well, I mean, as far as we know, there's no such thing as pheromones for human beings. So. But the point is that it's like what we said before, is that these are powers native to you, and you don't want to just get rid of because of the problem, potential evil with the problem at the man to cut off all his arms and legs. That's not the way you handle the powers. Is you have to develop the virtue and character to be able to make use of the powers that you have, and you have the sense to know what your limits are and what your maturity level is, and what your place in the intellectual hierarchical body is, and the place of your friend is, and look for the person that is your friend to be someone who can make decision along with you, or maybe the one that you'd listen to because he knows more than you. But the point is, you have to find out what that ability is and what that place is, and what that helps you fix the limits of your powers and where you won't fall. You don't just not climb the mountain, you just make sure you have good hiking shoes. You don't you don't just not drive the car, you just make sure you know how to drive a car, and you know when your limits are and when you're too tired and this and that. You have to use those native powers that are you, and to say, look, I'm just going to cut them off, is to say cut off yourself and not grow and not contribute what you alone can contribute.
Yeah, that's good. One of the things that you mentioned in the podcast was that there's a problem with people, like in the modern world, kind of feeling like, oh, we kind of know this stuff already, relationships, friendships. I mean, come on, it's just common sense, male and female, everybody knows that. I mean, but you said like we don't actually know it, and it's actually really dangerous to have this misconception. Can you say a little bit more about that? What's going on that we've had this sort of false sense of confidence or whatever's going on?
We do have that false sense of confidence about a lot of things, don't we? A lot of things we think we know what we're doing, we really don't know what we're doing.
Yeah.
And sometimes we can tell, like when we, try to fix the dryer or something and it blows up, then we know we messed up. But a lot of times we don't know that we messed something up because it doesn't blow up immediately. It kind of slow blows over time. And I think that's like what friendship is.
Uh-huh.
Kind of slow blows over time because you mess things up and you don't pay attention, so you don't get to notice how bad you're messing it up. So I think that's part of the scientism has made it so it's very hard for us to notice that we have no common sense. And most of us like to think we have lots of common sense, but I can tell you my own experience is that's a big sign you don't have any, very much. Yeah. Because to develop common sense in this culture requires deep thought, study, and deep going against the things that the foundational physics that very few people, that outside scientists even know what it is. Know that you've been trained in from very young. You and I and everybody's been trained in this equation first physics, at least indirectly, because all the conclusions that come from that equation first physics are baked into psychology and history and every subject, English, whatever subject you want, it's baked into those subjects, and you're learning it without even knowing it. Unless you have somebody to help you sort that out, your common sense is down the tubes. I mean, you may think you have common sense because you have a few things that you won't stick your hand in it and scalding hot water. Well, good for you. I mean, there's things like that you have that doesn't count as having common sense in any sense that we need it for today, the problems and issues of today. If everyone who thought he had common sense had what he had, the world wouldn't be what it is. It's a giant mess. People say things, it's hard to follow a lot of people's logic, and there's just no common sense, and people just do what they want.
Yeah.
We talked about this in one of the television shows we did, is that there's a will first. If I'm the authority and I have the power and I decide to do it, then everybody's supposed to just let me do it.
Yeah.
Anybody who says I shouldn't and tries to explain it is somebody that doesn't know what he's doing, because I get to do whatever I want. You can't tell me not to do it. After all, I have the power, right? I mean, that's not the way we would say it, but when you watch, it's what we do.
Yeah.
And that's a lack of common sense, because, we want to be open to what other people have to say, and especially when it's clearly that person knows more than you. And when you recognize that this nature of this modern science is at the root, our scientia, our science. Science is scientia. That simply means knowledge in Latin. Our knowledge is modern science.
Yeah.
And to not realize that we're governed by that and think we somehow escaped it with no effort, special effort on our own, is a lack of common sense, a total lack of common sense. Everybody around us thinks this, taught us from very young, and somehow we've escaped it. That's insane. That somehow we've got all this common sense that doesn't exist, that something has come from nothing. It's just came out of the clear blue vacuum Your black vacuum, I should say.
Yeah.
And it's not there, but we popped it out into ourselves, and it's so uncommonsensical. It's comical. I'm sure Chesterton would have some quip that would cover this.
Yeah.
I can't think of one.
Yeah. I just want to throw out for people, you did mention that show that IAP put out, the Decision for Truth. And so you should look into that, viewers, on the website, iapweb.org. You can find that on the store. So you should definitely check it out. It's a 5-part TV series, which is really, really, really important.
Yeah. It is. It's good. It's helpful for going through all the different issues that are back behind that, the scientism and our lack of ability to see that, and our will first. I want before what is. I want before truth. I've decided before truth.
That's right.
I'm the authority. I've been given charge, so I can do what I want. And and someday it'll be your turn, and you can do whatever the heck you want.
That's right.
That's not the way any kind of sensible, common sense world works.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. People should check that out for sure. We have a question here from Dominic.
Okay.
What can parents do to help their sons and daughters develop good friendships, especially considering the bad state of the culture?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, one of the first things to teach them is that everything that's going to happen to you is going to be conditioned by your friends. And so you want to pick the best friends you can have. And so that's teaching that deliberateness about their lives, that their friendships are going to form them. And they want to seek the best, most highest seeking people, the people that are most virtuous, and the people that mesh with them, but that want to do good and grow in truth, and have their, at some level, have the order in their life that they want to go finally to God, and they're on that path. You want those kind of people, and you want to deliberately find those kind of people, and you want to not fall into the just path of here's activity 1, activity 2, activity 3, and now I did look at how many activities, and I have all these ribbons from all these activities, but I've not made any friends,
Yeah.
So you want to have them make friendship a priority, and the people that they find, and then cultivate those friendships by being loyal and being making time available for them, and making it an issue that you spend a certain minimum amount of time with them, and do things that are constructive with them, fun things and intellectual things and a whole mixture of things. But don't just think it'll magically happen, but invest in it. And then as you meet people, you meet their parents, and the parents can indicate something about the children. Sometimes it's upside down. Sometimes the children are much better off than the parents, but you meet them through the children, through the parents anyway, and then you can kind of point them, looks like a nice kid, maybe you should get to know him, or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, that's helpful. I mean, so it's not just some kind of mystical, okay, we'll just throw them in this crowd and hope all the chemistry works out and it'll be great.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
they should be constantly discerning, constantly using their minds to see, is this a good friendship for me? Is it growing me in truth?
Yeah, I guess I've heard a lot of people bring this issue up on this note of like, oh, but aren't my kids supposed to be helping others and pulling other people up and stuff? Shouldn't they be trying to not just seek out like the most virtuous and so forth, but seek out the least virtuous and try and evangelize them or help them out?
No, I mean, not for little children. Little children are trying. You don't. One of the things that like if you ever done life-saving training of any kind, is you don't let the person pull you down. You have to come in behind him, because the tendency to grab on and just pull down. So you have to be aware enough of your own skills and what person you can save and what you can't. If you see a person drowning and you can't swim, you better not go in and get them, because then there's two people that need to be saved and you haven't helped anything.
Yeah.
So you need to, for children, they really need to be focused on, in friendship, there'll be enough of that. Nobody's perfect. And so be helping each other all the time and challenging. If a good friend, you'll be helping each other. You're not looking for a perfect person. There's no such thing outside of, a few instances. And so you're going to find that in any person you have. You're just looking for a person who's on the same trajectory and who wants to grow and is a person that you can help and he can help you. And so this is for children, right? But for adults, it's very similar. You don't want to go help somebody that you don't have the resources to help. But as you get older, you should reach out more and try to help others. And it all depends on your vocation as well, right?
Mm.
So as a doctor, you're going to be teaching people medicine, and you're not going to have a lot of time to go help the homeless. But somebody's vocation is to help the homeless.
Yeah.
So you have to, everyone has a different place in the body of man. You have to find that place and own it and be receptive. With the problem we have, which is the problem of the bad physics, you have to find people that know this, and the IEP is the only place that now has this. And find somebody and start reading the material and learning the material, and find somebody you can talk to about it and grow in it. And that's the beginning of growing, of this process of finding friends, is to be able to look for truth yourself, find it yourself, and then find a mentor, somebody who can help you do it, and listen to that person.
Mm-hmm.
And so that way you can then help your children.
Mm.
So.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, very practical. Because I think it also connects back to the other point of just the sort of overconfidence. If we saw how much, we needed to just get ourselves straight and oriented to the truth and really growing in it and seeing, our own deficits and so forth, then we wouldn't neglect our need to have friendships that help us grow and that we can unite with others in that growth. And
Right. And then we become an example to other people. We see a person that is above us that can help us, and we seek people above us, and then other people do the same.
Yeah.
Instead of just sort of going to the below, okay, well, I'll just make myself feel nice and humble. I'll go way low and I'll pull myself way low. Then you pull everybody way low.
Yeah.
So you really want to do something that pulls everybody up. And if you take and neglect the people that actually know stuff and the people who have actually succeeded in virtue and move away from them, then you're one of the parts of the body that's saying, let's move away from the proper order and let's do something else. And when you do the opposite, though, you're pulling other people with you.
Yeah. That's huge. I mean, it solves the issue of like how, people that do want to help the people beneath them, that's the kind of like one of the biggest ways they can finally help is to lead by the example of their own life, by what they care about.
Yeah, right. And to show those people, get the knowledge that those people are starved for. There's that great quote that I think we talked about, which is that God says in the Old Testament, my people perish for lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
And since we're made for truth, that's our goal. That's what we're made for. We seek it. When we seek it, other people see, oh yeah, I forgot. That's what I want. Let me go after that.
Yeah.
And then as people get it, then that's the taste of it. Wow. Okay. Wow. That is really what I wanted. And you go for more. And then you have more people, and it becomes more joyful and more efficacious. And you really start then the body starts ticking. That's when everyone's to sort of get involved and be at their own level. But if you have a higher level, then you have a higher responsibility, because those higher levels determine the lower levels' ability to be acting in the lower level. So by acting as if I'm going to go do something way beneath what I'm supposed to do is going to help anybody, you're actually hurting things. If you have that role, you're actually hurting things in a way that you can't even fathom, because you're meant to be in this place that helps have all the rest of the places be a place.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in the people in the different parts, the lower parts of the hierarchy, they have to say that, yeah, I'm down here and I want to be up there, so I'm going to be pulled. So everybody just pull upward towards God is what happens, you know.
Yeah.
But what we do is we don't want to go up. We're comfortable being in the muck, so we're intimidated by the up, because we don't really want to be what we're made to be, what God made us is calling us to be. We really want to be something lesser, and it's very sad, and it's, you know, it's funny to want to be happy and then not want to really want to be happy. You know? So we end up with a culture of people that are miserable in their wanting to be miserable, because we won't stand up and say, this is what I'm made for. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go get it, and I'm going to do what it takes, and I'm going to do my part. You know, and if everybody does his part, it's not as difficult as it looks by far.
Yes.
So that's the community of friends that is our higher good, and that, because it's in the friendship that we learn things that grow us that we can never do by ourselves. So unless we respect that and seek it, you know, we're just not going to be happy. We're not going to be doing what we're supposed to be doing and having the lives that will make other people be able to get what they want whenever where they are.
Yeah. 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 That's really good. Well, I don't know, Dr. Z, I think we're about out of time here.
Went over time a little bit, maybe.
Yeah. So, well, thanks so much for doing this podcast and this Q&A, and I think it's a lot of really good stuff, and I'm excited for people to get to share this and talk about it and get good conversations going about it. So thanks so much for your time and for doing this.
Well, you're welcome. Thank you, Fletcher, for the great conversation. I think it was really good. Talk to you later.
Sounds good. Bye.